we see you, I mean, the guys, people in this room and the companies that you represent are the companies that are going to deliver the programme of works for Dublin Airport over the next 5 to 6 years. There may well be a need though, and there's likely to be a need certainly for the larger packages of work for some level of international support. So we've been talking to the industry. We kicked off on the 25th of January with a briefing to the design professions in Dublin. We were in London, Paris and Madrid last week, apologies, and obviously culminating in the briefing to yourselves today. And really the purpose of the sessions has been to raise the awareness of the programme of works coming down the line among the industry, give you visibility, as Dalton said, of the pipeline of work that's coming down the line. We want to talk through the challenges that we're going to face in delivering the programme, and we want to, whilst we're briefing the industry, we also are in listening mode. So we want to hear from yourselves, and obviously we're very keen to talk through the programme of works with you in the breakout sessions afterwards to get your own views, not just in terms of how we've performed in the past, but how we can do things better, and how we can address the kind of issues that Dalton has raised in terms of risk allocation, partnership, and just a different way of doing things. So that's really the purpose of today. Some statistics here, I'm not going to go through them. Dalton has already taken you through the headline figures. But you see in the top right hand corner, passenger numbers 31.5 million last year, record breaking. We processed 116,000 passengers on our busiest day last year. Just a few short years ago, 100,000 passengers a day was our busiest day. We had over 100 days last year with more than 100,000 passengers. So what was our busiest day not too long ago is now becoming the norm for us. So, as Dalton said, there is a need for our investment, our infrastructure, and investment in our infrastructure to meet the increasing and growing demands right across the airport itself. You'll see a figure there just under the 31.5 million in the top right hand corner, 2.1 million transfer passengers, and that's significant, a 23% increase in passenger numbers transferring through Dublin Airport. And that's significant in terms of some of the infrastructure that I'm going to take you through in relation to Dublin becoming a significant hub airport. And one of the significant programmes of work that we're going to present to you, and which we'll have to deliver over the next few years, relates to infrastructure that will facilitate and enable Dublin Airport to become a significant hub airport, transferring passengers through Dublin to and from North America in particular. Key drivers of future growth, well, obviously we've had a number of years of not just economic stability but economic growth, typically 4 to 6% over the last few years, and that's driving our passengers, as Dalton said, more than a 50% increase in passenger numbers over the last 5 years. We're probably unusual, we're an unusual airport insofar as we have two very strong base carriers, Ryanair and Aer Lingus. Base carriers means these are airlines that aircraft come home at night. We have to park them overnight, and we have to find homes for them, and that's driving, I would say, driving demand and also causing constraints across the airport that we have to free up. But Ryanair and Aer Lingus, the advantage that we have of having these two significant base carriers is they have very complementary economic strategies, two very complementary growth strategies. Ryanair obviously focusing on the short haul, typically European market, and Aer Lingus increasingly focusing on the North Atlantic market into America, and particularly driving and focusing on the transfer market. As I said, I'll come to that in a little bit more detail. Aircraft, Dalton has already mentioned the fact that there have been new advances in technology. We now see single-aisle, narrow-body aircraft penetrating North America, increasingly further into North America. That's a game changer for Dublin Airport, because what we're seeing with our Dublin is the only capital city in Europe with pre-clearance for American passengers through our Custom Border Protection Facility, or CBP facility as we call it. We have pre-clearance, we can pre-clear passengers going into America, and with the further penetration of the single-body, narrow-body single-aisle aircraft into domestic airports in America that typically wouldn't have been geared up for the significant customs and immigration numbers that we can now process. We can have passengers arriving into Dublin from the rest of Europe, pre-clearing through US customs, getting onto the narrow-body aircraft, arriving into domestic airports in the States and walking off the aircraft as if they were American passengers. That gives Dublin a very, very significant advantage in terms of our competitors across Europe, and that's something that particularly Aer Lingus, as I said, are focusing on in terms of driving growth into the North American market. Our national aviation policy is supportive. As Dalton said, 86% of the visitors to Ireland come through Dublin Airport, and the national aviation policy supports the growth of Dublin Airport and also supports the growth of Dublin Airport as a hub airport, and that's very significant in terms of our plans going forward. So our next goal, we're currently at 31.5 million. We want to safeguard the development and safeguard the future of Dublin Airport and grow our passenger numbers up to 40 million initially. We anticipate being at 40 million passengers probably sometime around 2024, 2025, and ultimately that's a journey towards 55 million passengers, which is set out in a new master plan that we've developed. So we see this current SIP as not just meeting the demands in terms of us reaching the 40 million passengers over the next 5 or 6 years, it's also an enabling capital investment program, whereby there are also some very significant enabling projects that will enable us to take the next stepping stone towards ultimately 55 million passengers. What does 40 million passengers look like? Well, at the moment, currently, as I said, 116,000 passengers processed on our busiest day last year. We see an increase of about 40%, up to 143,000 passengers. We see a doubling of transfer passengers and also a doubling of the US pre-cleared passengers going through Dublin Airport over the next 5 to 6 years, and an increase in aircraft movements from 750 a day up to 925 a day. And given that we have some constraints in the airfield in terms of stands in particular, this is going to present a very significant challenge to us, and a large part of the capital infrastructure that we're proposing to develop relates to stand delivery. And again, I'll go through that in more detail. So initiatives to secure growth. Well, current and proposed initiatives. Airfield development projects, as I said, and I'll run through those in more detail. As Dalton said, we have a very good partnership with FCC and Roadbridge, who are in the early stages of delivering our second parallel runway. We have Dublin Airport Central. We're currently developing 40,000 square metres of commercial office space at Dublin Airport. We have planning permission for another 40,000 square metres and a multi-storey car park. And in time, we see that doubling again over the next probably 10 years or so, 5 to 10 years. So a very significant commercial development at Dublin Airport. We've hub development, which I'll come on to, expanded piers and enhanced terminal facilities. And in relation to technology and sustainability, we want to make sure that Dublin Airport is at the leading edge, at the forefront of innovation, of technological advances. There are very significant technological advances being made in aviation globally. We want to make sure that we incorporate those advances into how we build our infrastructure and how we operate our airport in the future. And also sustainability. Aviation, as we know, probably doesn't have the best name from a sustainability perspective out there among the public, and it's important for us to demonstrate that what we're building, how we're building it, is more sustainable. And we have a number of projects that we're putting forward that we hope to address the sustainability agenda, for example, in relation to energy efficiency of build and also sustainable drainage systems. And again, we can talk more detail about those subsequently. For those of you, or you may not be aware, but Dublin is a regulated airport. So we're regulated in 5-year capital cycles, or capital investment programs, or SIPs, as we call them. We're currently in the final stage, the final year of our current SIP, 2015 to 2019. Even this year alone, Dublin Airport as a whole, between the current capital projects, together with Dublin Airport Central, together with the North Runway, the parallel runway, we're probably going to deliver somewhere between 250 to 300 million euro of development this year alone. Last year, we applied to the regulator. We're regulated by the Commission for Aviation Regulation. And last year, we applied for a supplementary capital program of 280 million, which we got about 95 or 96% of that granted by approved by the regulator. And we're currently in the process of delivering that program. What we're predominantly here to present to you is the next program, 2020 to 2024, which we're currently going through a consultation process with the regulator. And obviously, that 5-year program is part of an overall, as I mentioned earlier, master plan, which ultimately will take us to 55 million passengers, albeit in 5-year regulated capital investment programs. So as I said, we're currently going through a regulatory process at the moment. We've been planning the facilities, but planning our proposals for about a year and a half now. That culminated in a consultation process that was held with the airline community in December, early December. We invited submissions. Having said that, we have been working very closely with our airline customers in particular in terms of the evolution and the development of some of the designs that you're going to see, early designs that you're going to see. But we invited submissions from the community, which we received just before Christmas, and we will have our final submission going into the regulator in the next week to 2 weeks. We expect a draft decision from the regulator in April of this year, and following which there'll be a further consultation process with a final determination from the regulator in Q3 of this year. Having said that, we can't afford to wait. And going back to Dalton's comment about us needing to invest, we are proceeding and progressing with a number of our proposed developments right across the board and right across the campus in advance of a final decision from the regulator. We're very confident in the proposals we've put forward. As I said, we put a supplementary CapEx programme application with the regulator last year. We got the vast majority approved. And similarly with this application to the regulator, we're very, very positive in terms of what we've put forward. I'm very confident that we'll get approval for the vast majority of the programme, if not all of the programme. So we're progressing, and that's why we're here today, to talk to yourselves. So total investment programme in 2020 to 2024, we're putting forward a proposal for approximately €1.7 billion of investment across 4 major programmes of work and a capital maintenance programme. So South Apron, North Apron, Airfield and Piers and Terminals developments, which I'll go through in more detail, and also up to €600 million on capital maintenance. And the vast majority of that 600 million is directly relevant to yourselves as well, and will be delivered predominantly by yourselves and the companies that you represent. So looking at just headline quantities for those of you that have an interest or just get a feel for the scale of what we're talking about. 150,000 square metres of new roads and car parks, 250,000 square metres of new airfield apron, about 130 to 140,000 square metres of either new build or refurbished. We've got a lot of old stock, building stock across the airport campus, which has significant refurbishment required. 5,000 tonnes of steel, 60,000 cubic metres of attenuation tanks, more than 20 air bridges, and 125,000 square metres of apron refurbishment. So you can see a very significant programme of work across the board. How are we going to deliver it? Well, we see it being delivered in 4 significant programmes of work, and this is, I suppose, a change for us insofar as historically, with the exception, I would say, of T2 in the last large capital investment programme that we delivered, with the exception of T2, typically we've been delivering infrastructure on an as-needs basis. We've gone out to tender individual projects and we've built individual projects. What we're looking to do now is to go to the market with much more sizable, significant programmes of work, in large part to make it more attractive to yourselves in the market to deliver. We want to be a more attractive client, as Dalton said. Probably the airport is not the easiest place to work, as some of you know yourselves. We can make it difficult as a client. We want to change, and I suppose we're going out to the market with a different approach, which includes delivering very, very significant programmes of work, and again I'll come through those in more detail. So 4 zones, North Apron, which is the area predominantly used by Ryanair. Piers and Terminals programme, very significant development and refurbishment of our existing Terminal 1 in particular, which is an old terminal. The South Apron area, and this is the area that is going to include significant hub infrastructure to enable Dublin Airport to process increasing numbers of transfer passengers onto North America and vice versa, and a very significant airfield and civils programme. And you can see the difference between this programme and programmes in the past is that Dublin Airport is going to become a construction site. Somebody once talked about JFK as being a construction site with an airport in the middle of it. We don't want to become that. We want to be an operating airport with a lot of construction underway. Ultimately, we serve customers are airlines, we serve our passengers, and we have to make sure that in delivery of this programme that we do it in such a way that it doesn't impact negatively on the passenger journey through Dublin Airport. This is going to be a very, very significant challenge for us going forward. For those of you, I suppose, who don't, I'll just go back to that slide. Dalton has said, as Dalton said, we actually have 2 runways at the moment. We have the 1028 east-west runway. It takes about 95% of our traffic. With the crosswind runway, 1634, particular wind conditions takes about 4 or 5% of our traffic, and obviously we have the parallel runway, which is about to start construction. I suppose the challenge that we face, particularly in relation to 1634, is that it constrains the development in the east. Ultimately, we're going to have to move west, and what we're looking to do under this capital investment programme is maximise the capacity, particularly the processing capacity for passengers on the eastern side of the campus, and also deliver some enabling projects which will enable us ultimately to move to the west of 1634. And in a particular note in that regard is the construction of a new underpass, about a kilometre long underpass under runway 1634, which will ultimately enable us to move after this capital investment programme in a westward direction. So, looking at the programmes of work in a little bit more detail, we have the North Apron. So most of you are probably familiar with the layout. But we have Terminal 1, a terminal that was built in the 1970s, served by Pier 1, which is the Ryanair Pier, Pier 2 and Pier 3, which are a mix of short-haul, narrow-body and long-haul, wide-body aircraft and various airlines operating out of them. We've got Terminal 2, which is built, Terminal 2, built in 2010, with Pier 4, which is a pier operated by Aer Lingus and a number of the North American carriers, United Airlines, American Airlines, Delta, and also some of the Middle Eastern carriers such as Emirates and Qatar. So basically, in the North Apron, what we're proposing to do is an extensive programme of works to effectively start the development of a new pier. You can see I'll play a bit of a flyover now in a moment. So, new busing lounges to allow busing from the existing old central terminal building up to the northern North Apron. We have demolition of a number of hangars in the North Apron and the start of construction of the first module of the new Pier 1 extension. Ultimately, we see as demand increases, passenger numbers, that pier will continue to be extended all the way through with progressive construction of new aircraft stands, associated aircraft stands. We're also proposing the delivery of a new pre-boarding zone, a new effective holding area. For those of you that have travelled with Aer Lingus in the South Apron and that have maybe gone through our new pre-boarding zone in the South Apron, something similar to that, albeit on a larger scale, but we can bus passengers and hold them and then they can walk subsequently out to the new aircraft stands that we're delivering in the north. So we're currently in the early stages of delivery of 12 new aircraft stands in the North Apron. In total, we're probably looking at somewhere in the region of 25 new stands in the North Apron over the next 5 to 6 years. Total investment in this area, we estimate somewhere in the region of €200 million, and we're happy to discuss in more detail in the breakout sessions afterwards. So, just do a quick flyover to Pier 1, Ryanair Pier, demolition of the hangars here, construction of a new pier, Module 1, the link walkway to the second stage of the pier development. Ultimately, that will work its way through. New stand development, so 20 to 25 new stands in the North Apron area, and as I said, total capital investment somewhere in the region of €200 million. South Apron, we're looking at, this is an area that is predominantly operated by Aer Lingus, but together with the other North Atlantic carriers, North American carriers, and a number of the Middle Eastern carriers. We're looking at a very, very significant programme of work in the South Apron area, somewhere between 400 to 450 million euro in this area alone. A new Pier 5, 3-level pier, fully CVP enabled, so to enable passengers to pre-clear and depart from Pier 5 straight to America, pre-US cleared. We're looking at wide-body enablement of Pier 2 and Pier 3. We're looking at an expansion of the US pre-clearance, a doubling of the US pre-clearance facility. Very significant apron development. We're looking at development of 17 new stands in this area. 8 stands, narrow body stands, also wide body enabled, and another 9 stands in this area here. Pier 5, new pier, and a doubling of the US pre-clearance facility. Again, I'll just do a quick flyover to give you a little flavour of what that is. And as I said, development of somewhere in the region of 400 to 450 million euro. Demolition of 13 buildings to enable the construction of the new pier. Relocation of a number of businesses, including cargo businesses. Very, very significant development. And we're also looking at the relocation of cargo businesses to a new cargo village on the eastern side of the access road of the R132 to the airport. What we're looking to do is develop a service site that will facilitate the cargo businesses then to relocate over the next couple of years to enable the demolition of, as I said, 13 buildings to facilitate the development of the South Apron. Brian will go into more detail in terms of how we propose to procure this. Looking at 2 major contracts, one enabling works contract probably in the region of 30 to 50 million euro, and a principal contract for the construction of Pier 5, the construction of the US pre-clearance, and also all of the apron and stand development, and that potentially could be a contract somewhere in the region of 250 to 300 million euro. So again, that's a departure in terms of how we've been delivering infrastructure over the last number of years. In terms of other development, airfield development, we have again a very sizable programme of work, somewhere in the region of 400 to 500 million euro worth of work in terms of development of new apron, new taxiways. We have new link taxiways, link 3, link 6, extension of our dual Cody taxiways in parallel with 1634, a 1 kilometre underpass from Pier 3 to enable development on the west. We have a number of stands that are predominantly used by freight on the west side of 1634. The underpass will enable us to unlock those stands, make them serviceable for passenger aircraft. We're also looking at the delivery of 17 new stands, apron 5M, on the western side of the campus, and there are other proposals in terms of line-up points, de-icing pads, substation upgrades, road network upgrades, and also upgrades to our gate posts, our security gate posts, to accommodate the kind of traffic that we're going to be putting through the security facilities in delivery of this programme. So it's a very significant programme of work, 400 to 500 million euro worth of work, and Brian will go through the kind of frameworks that we're talking about putting in place in more detail. And then finally, in terms of the piers and terminals, again, significant programme of about 400 to 500 million euro worth of work, including very significant capital maintenance programmes. Terminal 1, as I said, is an old terminal. It was built in the 1970s, extended in the early 2000s. We're looking at a very, very significant upgrade. So for those of you that have travelled, or most of you, if not all of you, have travelled through Terminal 1, which is effectively where, when you go into the check-in area where Ryanair have the check-in desks, we're looking, you check in and then you go through the central search area through security. We're looking to, if you know the terminal, there's a mezzanine slab just above where you have food and beverage, you have McDonald's and a couple of cafes up there. We're looking to move the entire central search area up onto the mezzanine after extension of the mezzanine slab through the full length of T1. We're going to reorientate and realign the entire check-in area. We're going to upgrade the baggage reclaim area, which is tired and old, and we're going to expand the international departure area. That package of work alone would probably be in the region of 200 million euro worth of work, and again, Brian can go through in more detail how we're proposing to procure that. So a very, very significant programme of work and upgrade work in particular in T1. I would say of the 400 to 450 million euro worth of work, close on 350 to 400 million of the work is going to be carried out in T1. And we're more than happy to. We'll go through these in more detail in the breakout sessions. Probably it's difficult to see the detail on the slide deck here. And a much more modest program of expansion in T2. As I said, it's a terminal, very impressive, very modern terminal that was delivered in 2010. So we're looking at a modest expansion of the central search area, some reconfiguration of the check-in hall, and also some reconfiguration of the immigration hall, again to enable growth of passengers through T2 from somewhere in the region of 11 million up to about 16 million passengers over the next 5 to 6 years. Again, more than happy to go through that in more detail. And there are a whole host of other projects. In total, we're putting forward about 110 projects to the regulator in our proposal. We're bundling those into sizable programs of work and sizable packages of work. We've got new bridge and cargo area, we've got security projects, engine test site, fuel hydrants, de-icing facilities, a whole range of programs, including environmental compliance. We have a proposal for about 50 million euros for drainage projects alone. We have to, as I said earlier, take sustainability seriously in how we deliver infrastructure going forward. And just on the drainage alone, we're looking at a program of about 50 million euro worth of work in terms of total reconfiguration of our drainage program, in terms of attenuation tanks and possible treatment on site. And finally, just before I hand over to Brian, what are the challenges? Dalton has already alluded to most of these: scale, logistics, accommodation. We could be looking at up to 3,000 construction workers on site at the peak in 2022. We have to house them, we have to feed them, we have to medical centres and so forth. Planning is proving to be a very significant challenge for us at the moment, going through the planning regime, but we're working through it. Access considerations are going to be very significant for us, significant challenge, and in particular, as I said, how do we deliver this level of capital infrastructure whilst maintaining a good operational airport that passengers fly through and are happy with their experience.